Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. A couple of years ago, I interviewed a woman named Jeannie Glenn, who is the editor and publisher of Book Publishers of El Paso. She engaged me in being involved in some of her work and reading some material being written by some others. And at one point, within last year, just several months ago, she asked my wife to be a judge in a literary contest that was conducted in this very building at Community College. Among the entries that she, and I looked at some of them, this was one of the entries. The Salsa Culture Invades America by Felix Valenzuela. I won't tell you how she voted for any of the books. That would not be right or appropriate at this point. Her name is Shanna Blevins. But I was especially intrigued by this one, written by my guest today. Felix, we're glad that you're here to talk about this book.
Pleasure, an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Why I was so intrigued by this was because between 1964 and 1967, I was taking classes at Texas Western that became UT El Paso, and teaching there as a teaching assistant, teaching some classes. And I didn't have a lot of students from South El Paso. I had some, but not a whole lot. Many of my students in the classes were from Eastwood, Coronado areas, Kern Place, and other places like that, that were upper middle class and upper middle class. South El Paso still rather poor, and tenements that were in that area. And so a sociology professor and I teamed up, Felix, and we would take some of our students down there on walking tours of South El Paso, of all things, from Chihuahuita over to Bowie High School, all right? And the Chamizal was over there in transition at that particular time. And some of our students that we would take over there were shocked at what they saw in South El Paso, the poverty conditions, the third world conditions that they were living in. That's the reason your book intrigued me, because you discuss some of those things. You discuss education, you discuss the facilities, the housing, transportation, the kinds of things that were there. And you told some of this story. Now, I've told my audience from time to time, everyone has a story and you need to write it down. You need to get it down for your children and grandchildren. So Felix, tell us a little bit about your background. Are you from El Paso?
I'm from El Paso. I was born in South El Paso in 1942.
1942, okay.
And I attended Alamo Grammar, and then Bowie, then TAC, and then UTEP.
Okay.
After that, I volunteered as a missionary for my church in the country of Peru for 2.5 years. Came back, was drafted. We got married to my sweetheart.
What's her name?
Rosa Esther Valenzuela.
Okay.
She goes by Esther.
Esther, okay.
And about 2 months later, I was drafted, and I was headed to Vietnam.
Oh my!
And that was quite a year.
How long were you in Vietnam?
A whole year.
A whole year.
Came back, attended the UTEP, and after that I did some work with other companies, and then I applied for a state job in the state of Utah. The Utah Board of Education contracted me to be a state director over the migrant and seasonal farm workers. So I spent some years over there, and cold weather and 3 accidents later, I said, you can keep
back
your
to El Paso.
Back to El Paso. That black ice doesn't belong in my psyche.
Right.
So I got involved in El Paso here with the Parks and Recreation. I was a member of the advisory board for 3 terms. And then I ran for, it's an actual elected office to be a member of the board of directors at Project Bravo. Spent a few years there, and hence all this time I was writing this book.
You had the story to tell.
Had a story to tell. That's right. The reason I really started writing the book was I saw in my own family that our history, our roots, were relatively not well known or not highly regarded, should I say. It was intended for especially for my kids, perhaps my grandkids too, back then. And as I was writing, some of my friends at the university said, "Hey, Felix, this is not just another story," because I shared some of the things I was writing. You can turn it into a book. And that's when I got the idea. And took me 10 years, because I wasn't a writer.
So you did a lot of interviewing, you were talking to people, and you were going through research, paper research and things like that?
I did, and you know how you run into a writer's block. There were months when I wasn't interested in writing. And
right.
So after 10 years, I came up with the book. Now I couldn't find a title. And
The Salsa Culture Invades America.
I had other titles, you know, that just weren't appealing at all. They're too normal, too simple.
But you're a salsa kind of guy, right?
There you go. Salsa. And I started thinking one night about salsa. I don't know why it came to my mind. And the fact that my grandfather fought with Pancho Villa. Then he fled from Pancho Villa with my uncles, and they crossed the river and landed in Clint, where they hid themselves there until the revolution was over, in the farms, working as laborers. Somewhere along that line, the word invades. I had already thought about salsa, and then here's this word that just popped out. They invaded.
Okay.
You know.
We have such a short time. What was the hardest part of the book to write and the easiest part to do?
The hardest part was, actually, the having to rewrite and change things, you know, not to be repetitive, and not using. I don't use the I.
And of course, you were translating in your mind from English and Spanish and back and forth with everything you were doing and looking at, right?
Exactly. Now let me tell you one thing. I spoke no English at all when we moved to. I was raised in South El Paso.
Okay.
My first day of school was quite an experience. I was there. I didn't know what was going on. I was just looking around. A couple of hours later, the teacher said recess. All the kids went out. I thought school was over. I went home.
Yeah.
And my parents obviously were not home, but they were getting back to the slum area that it was in my time. It was even worse than when you went over there. There were all kinds of cars abandoned. I got into one of the cars and I fell asleep. A truant officer grabbed me by the hair and took me to his car. I didn't know who he was. I was just crying.
Oh, poor thing.
Took me in his car. I thought I was being kidnapped. Right? Took me to the principal at Alamo, where I was swatted not once or twice. How about 10 or 12 times?
Physical punishment was very common back then.
Oh, it was. Let me tell you. And you could not even mention this to your own parents, because they would whack you, not realizing or misunderstanding the situation or circumstance.
Now you related in your book about there was no real emphasis on going to school. The emphasis was on getting out to school, going to work, and doing things like that. And I heard a lot of that even in the 1960s.
Oh.
Students, people being discouraged from going on to college. Why go to college?
Back then, high school was like graduating from the university. I was the only one in my family and the youngest to finally get out of high school. And my parents died just before. It was my mom's dream to have at least somebody graduate from high school. But she died a year before I graduated, and she never saw me go to the university, etc. Back then, South El Paso, the mentality back then was just go to the 6th grade or 7th grade, that's it, go to work. We need help, in other words.
Well, now you have a story to tell on that one, because as you came in, you brought me a little pamphlet here, and it's about a banquet about lawyers in El Paso, Texas.
Yes.
And your son, his name is at the very top of this program.
That's
Tell
right.
us about your children and about this son that's at the top of this program.
My son was just elected as the top lawyer, outstanding lawyer, out of 5,000 lawyers, I understand. And a big banquet was given to honor him and other people as well at the El Paso Country Club. I had all my life, I had never gone inside the country club, because that's an exclusive club. And here I am, a simple parent, a father.
A proud father. Now, what's his name?
Felix Valenzuela.
Also Felix Valenzuela.
Valenzuela.
And you have any daughters or other sons?
I have, I'm very proud of my daughters. Linda, she's the oldest. She's done many remarkable things in her life, and I'm very proud of her. She's attending the university, and she's got 6 kids.
Yeah.
They kept her busy, away from, pursuing her education or completing her education, because she was attending before. The younger one, Lisette, last name is Munoz now.
Okay.
Went to BYU, graduated over there. Then she went to Webster University and got her master's. She with a perfect 4.0 GPA in counseling. She's a licensed professional in the state of Texas. So I'm very proud of them. But the real hero is my wife.
Yes. Okay.
Here she was, a hairstylist for close to 30 years. And she was timid, didn't really believe that she had the potential to become somebody a little more educated.
Professional. Yeah,
Professional.
Well, did she go into school then?
She was 50. She caught cancer. She couldn't work with her hands anymore.
Oh, no.
So we pushed her into the community college. She received national honors.
The best place to start.
Boy, I wish I had that at my time. Then she went to the University of Texas at El Paso. She became an honor student. She spent 13 years as a teacher, retired this past summer. But the teachers over there and the principal called her back. We need a tutor like you.
Oh, my.
So she's tutoring. I'm very proud of her.
Social service, service-oriented family. Now, you're wearing a jacket that says Yale. Is that where your son went to school?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything distinctive about him going to Yale?
He was the first from the Law Preparation Institute at UTEP to be admitted to Yale Law School.
Oh, good.
I still cannot overcome the idea that he actually went over there and succeeded, because I had at that time when he was headed over there, I said, as long as he can pass at least one semester, that's fine. He completed 3 years, went to Notre Dame to work on his PhD. Now he has his own law firm at the Wells Fargo downtown.
Here in El Paso.
El Paso.
That's great. He came back to El Paso.
To El Paso. He had job offers in New York, hefty salaries.
Well, it's hard for you to believe all this has happened in your life, isn't it?
Wow. Not, starting in the slum area of South El Paso, speaking no English. You're right.
Okay, well, we want to know about you, but also our audience wants to know about your book. Tell us about the book, the structure. What are the most important things that you put in that book?
Mainly what the makeup, what we believe in, what our traditions are, our goal, symbolisms. You know, the curanderos, the witch doctors,
Right.
we call them now.
Right.
The braceros, that the program that permitted Mexicans to come across, immigrants,
I remember that.
during the Second War, to work over here, while the rest of the males members here were off the war. And I talk about the mariachis, the quinceaneras. I include also our recipes and our songs. My grandpa claims that he was part of a group that formed some of the popular songs from Mexico, like La Panchita, Adelita, as they would go from place to place during the Revolution. They would form, have firesides or whatever you want to call them,
Right.
and they would compose those songs.
So you have in here culture, and part of that food, education, music, all of those kind of things.
And also have a little history about the Spaniard coming to the Americas and intermarrying with the Indian, where the offspring was Mexican.
Right.
Now the Spaniards back then did not believe that the Indian had a soul, a spirit. But when they bore the first Mexican, they said, now that one does have a spirit.
It changed everything, doesn't it?
Changed a lot.
Before we run out of time, I want to give you a chance to give your telephone number or an email or something if people want to contact you about this book. You got a telephone number or something?
Oh, yes. Of course, area code 915-216-1373. 216-1373.
Yeah. Before I even met you, I was taking this book to class
Oh,
and talking
well,
to
thank
them.
you.
Yes, talking to them about South El Paso and culture and all of these other politics. There's politics in here too, right?
Oh, definitely.
And then, of course, I met you at that literary competition, and then at Jeannie's house when she had a reception, and good to meet someone that I'm reading about.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. So we're glad you shared yourself with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me once again.
Yeah, all right.
I appreciate it.
Okay, before we run out of time, any of the other things that you think are significant about this? Why should someone pick up your book and read it?
Well, yeah, all Spanish are named or Hispanics or Latinos, Mexican or Mexican American.
Yeah, you talk about the different words that are used in this culture. Yeah.
Should have a copy of this to preserve our roots, where we came from, our history, what contributions we have made in this new society. Should I say new society? Or especially coming from Mexico. I was born here in El Paso.
Right.
But my parents and grandparents came from Mexico.
Well, it struck me as interesting that the Spanish culture was already here, the Mexican culture was already here, and here come the Anglos.
Okay.
Donovan and the others down the river, and from the railroads coming through, and that changed everything.
Oh, that's quite a history. Let me tell you, they created so many things. On the one hand, I'm very thankful that they came. They had guts. Should I say, some vision that this was a place, a potential place for business, for even for pleasure,
For education.
you name it. On the other hand, there were some ruffians, people that just
The gunfighters.
gunfighters that created what we see on TV, the Western movies and all that. And but there were some barriers, our Mexican Mexicans or Mexican immigrants were not really accepted here or received well, just like a little different than those going to Ellis Island.
Oh, yes.
There was a little difference. But thanks to Aoy, that remarkable man who came from Spain and educated the immigrant, a lot of things changed because of him. I'm very thankful that he had that heart, should I say, Christ-like heart, service, whatever he did, that his influence is still felt.
Well, people make a difference in our lives. Is
Oh,
there
yes.
anyone that you think back on all of this that inspired you the most? Was it a mother? Was it a father? Was it a teacher? Who was it that inspired you to become what you are?
Well,
That's a tough one.
it's a tough one because there was a whole bunch.
So many. You mentioned Ahoy, of course. Did you know him? Or was that
No,
before
no,
your
no.
time? That
He
was
died
before
in
your time.
1890.
So he laid a structure there that others were building on when you were in South El Paso.
You know, there were coaches. Here we are.
Coaches,
They
okay.
got us away from problems in South El Paso. Got us involved in baseball, football, basketball. I owe a lot to Coach Cayo.
Okay,
I forgot his last name. Nemo Herrera. He's a Hall of Fame coach.
okay.
Bob Lawrence. If I had not gotten involved in baseball, I don't know what would have happened to me. Because can I share something quick
Yes,
to you?
it's your program.
I was a member of a gang.
Okay.
We called ourselves the Jaguars, an offshoot of the King Cobras.
Okay.
Back then, there was a whole bunch of gangs that I describe in my book.
Right.
And as part of initiation, we had to put some tattoos on the arms and legs. And for some couple of years, we got involved in drinking and stealing, and I didn't get involved with women or smoking marijuana. Okay.
Okay.
There came a time when my parents died, and I was adopted. Eventually adopted, and these people were very church goers. I got involved in church.
Were they
circles.
Mormons? They were Mormons,
Yes,
and you
they were
became
Mormons.
a Mormon. Okay.
Mormons is an Indian word. It means jaguar of the mountains. Okay.
Okay.
Comes from Nahuatl.
Okay.
I changed my life. It was a complete turnaround. Because just before then, when I made the change, I had my name tattooed
So
right
you've
there.
had it taken off.
I cut it off
You cut it off.
with a knife.
Oh my.
A lot of blood came out, and my arm, swelled
So you were saying, there goes the old life.
the whole life. But they almost cut my arm off.
Oh my.
I prayed, I asked the Lord to save it, that I would not get involved anymore.
Okay.
I got involved in the church. That's how I ended up in Peru. I ended up in a prison in Peru with my companions. That's when Che Guevara was very strong in Latin America.
Oh my word.
He killed some of our...
He was fighting religion. Yeah.
Yes, oh. So I'm thankful that I got away from that life, but I still have
Yeah, right. You have the scar.
the scars.
The scar to prove it. Well, you had some bumpy roads to cross over, but you made it. And here you are, stronger than ever.
That's why it's an honor to be here. People like you that, that really are influential. You inviting us to write our own stories, or write your story. And as far as I'm concerned, write it. Don't think about it. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to be a celebrity to make a difference in other people's lives.
Oh, no.
Yeah. You mentioned these coaches. We don't remember their names. Very few people remember some of them. Some are in the Hall of Fame, but that's even passing. What makes a difference is, do we make a difference in somebody else's life every day for the better?
Let me tell you, they came at the right time. That's when I was really involved in, the next step was drugs. And some of our friends back then probably died in prison,
Yeah, well, we know that you can't tell all of your story today in a 28-minute segment that we do.
Yes.
So we want people to know about this book. They've got a telephone number there. And my wife and I found it very fascinating to read this. And we congratulate you on
Thank you.
completing this project. It took you a long time and bumpy roads. And we haven't tried any of these recipes. As I was leaving the building to come over here a while ago, and I had this poster I put together and had the book, and there was a woman that works at the college, a bit overweight, and we tease each other a lot. And I showed her this, and I said, do you do salsa? You do salsa? And she said, no, I don't do salsa. Mi gordo.
Mi gordo.
Actually, she
Mi
did
gordo.
mi gordo, don't do salsa.
I'm not too far from
I
that.
said, okay, what about salsa? And she says, I use salsa on tacos.
On taco.
So you've got your recipes in here. I need
And
to
here-
show this to her and she can get some recipes out of that. So I'm not sure of how much time we have left, but I'm sure it's very, very short. Any last word that you want to give our audience about writing your own story?
Well, let me tell you, living in this city is so historical.
No, yes.
It's always been a stepping stone for people migrating from Mexico to the U.S. From here, they spread out. I feel that there's so much to do here, still to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And I see an awakening of our people. Not to undermine any other culture.
Right, right.
It's so pleasant, so wonderful to see so many cars at the community college and at UTEP. When I was going to UTEP, we were just a few.
Mm-hmm.
And now to think that UTEP has close to 27,000 students.
And it's the #1 college in the United States with regard to Hispanic population and receiving degrees from a college. Right there at the top.
Let me
El
tell
Paso
you,
Community College, here we are, one of the top 10 colleges in the United States.
isn't that something?
And some
That's
people say, El
remarkable.
Paso, a bunch of Mexicans down there? And we say, no, we are Americans. We have different cultures. Some are Mexican-Americans, some are Mexicans. But we can accomplish things if we work on it.
You know, Diana Natalicio, Dr. Natalicio has been remarkable. She's gone over and beyond the call of duty. Because of her efforts, look at UTEP, what it is now,
Right.
and what you just stated.
Yeah. And I just did an interview with her recently. It'll be on the air. Well, it was just on the air this week, in fact. It's been on the air this week. Well, our time is gone. It goes too fast, and we have such a big story to tell. Felix, it's wonderful to have you here, and
Thank
with
you.
your hun, who is over there watching this today.
Oh.
And so, Esther, is that her name?
Esther Valenzuela.
Wonderful. Thanks for watching one of the most interesting programs I've had in the last 12 months. I'm Leon Blevins. Tune in again.